Hello, everyone. Welcome to Spirit Sessions, A View of the Light. We have an amazing show in store for you today. We are so happy to hang out with you, and this is a pre-recorded show, so we won't be able to comment as the show is live, but please don't hesitate to comment. We'll be glad to touch base with you, and we'd love to see where you all at and how you feel about the show that we're sharing today. Before we get started, please take a moment to share this out, invite your friends. We will be sharing whoever wins that shares out the most this week on next week's episode, and I think we won't have this, we'll have it in the comments, whoever won for today. So make sure to check the comments. Rhonda will post that. I'm signing her up even though she hasn't volunteered, to say who won for sharing out last week. And today's, like I said, today's episode is going to be amazing. We've just been having an awesome chat with our guest, and I can't wait to hear more. So Rhonda, if you could introduce our guest.
Hi, everyone. I'm what is really restricting me is like there's so much for him to tell us. And so I'm so excited to introduce to you Foster Perry. And I've been peeking at his bio, but really I'd like him to introduce himself and to put his highlights of everything. He's joining us so graciously tonight from Brazil, where he says he visits it every year and for the last 30 years. So, and he loves to travel the eternal spring around the world. So great on him. I would love it to be in his shoes today. So Foster, please welcome, and please give us a little 411 about Foster Perry and what your healing center is called and where you can be contacted, and then we'll go on with your story.
So I've had many healing centers over the years. I've taught different schools. So I began when I was about 9 years old. I had an opening then, and I realized who I was. And I started working with priests and nuns and churches, doing hands-on healing. And people were exploiting me so much, for the gifts, that once I started to meet lamas and I started to meet Indian gurus and definitely yogis. My father was from India, my mother's from Greece. My mother was a pianist, and my father was, a psychiatrist, neurologist, a surgeon. And he introduced me to hypnosis when I was 9 years old. And probably that's what opened me, and biofeedback machines. So I started to regulate my own heartbeat, my own, I could regulate all sorts of things, the heat and cold in my hands. It was fantastic. And from there, I did that for a few years. I did a lot of healing work. And then I said, I don't want to do this anymore. I just want to be, as you say, a kind of adolescent kid. And then I went to Georgetown. I did everything my parents wanted me to do. I grew up with a family that wanted me to have a lot of education. So I had to go to all these good schools. And then I rebelled. I was a rebel. I loved art. I loved creativity. I loved, self-expression. And I became first an artist. I became a fashion designer. I did many, many things in my life. I had my little 50 minutes of fame. And then I met a woman. I read her book in one day about mediumship with nature spirits, actually. And I was in a field looking at a wheat field in New York City, and I got hit by lightning. That all happened within 24 hours. And it was just, I remember the day, it was March 15th. I was 25 years old, and everything opened. I couldn't speak after that. My shoes were thrown off of me. They were blown off of me because the lightning hit next to me. I was in a storm, and I don't know what it is, but it was a kind of enlightenment. And I only could hear like a radio inside of my head, and I knew things. I just knew things, like a waking up. I didn't want to speak for the first few months, so of course my father thought I was having a psychotic break. I wasn't. I tried to tell him, no, I'm lucid. And I began to sing. So I started to hear songs of plants. This is how shamanism began for me. And I started to meet Native Americans, and I started to grow my hair very, very long and braided like a Native American. And I met them everywhere in New York because they were building these skyscrapers. They're not afraid of heights. And so I started building medicine wheels. Can you imagine this? Medicine wheels all over New York.
Awesome.
And I started to do all kinds of healing and I don't know, first with Native Americans, like, nations people. And then something else happened. Just people started to discover, that I was living in New York City in this funny apartment, and they were just coming for healings. They didn't know why. And I saw my first crystal then. I didn't know what that was. And then they started coming en masse, hundreds, and I started playing with, Tesla coils and, everything. And that was the beginning. I think the first workshop, there were like 120 people there. I mean, I had no idea. I just went to one conference. I remember like some whole life conference, and some woman was channeling the goddess. And I looked at her, I said, I can do that. I know her intimately. And that's how it all began. I just started talking to people from her. And later on, I loved Hecate, and I loved many, many goddesses over my life and gods, and understood them. And then came another thing where I started to need to learn shamanism. So for 12 years, I had to get trained. I started with a medicine woman who was Lakota. And then I lived with a Hopi, with a friend of mine who was adopted by the Hopi Indians. And then I started to move to Santa Fe, New Mexico for 17 years to be trained in the mountains there. Unbelievable training with crazy shamans, believe me, from all over the world. Celtic shamans came to me and they started to train me. That was wild because, they made me hike, I think it was 35 kilometers in one day, straight up a mountain.
Wow.
And after a while, they timed
Oh.
it. You had to do it in 55 minutes by the end. And you had to jump over boulders. You had to do incredible things. I had to be physically very fit. I was 25, so I could do it. 26.
Wow.
And then they made me climb naked up, like waterfalls. And you couldn't be afraid. They would dangle me off cliffs to build my willpower, because this is part of shamanism. You have to have the will to live, to survive. And then came all the channeling, at the top of a mountain, talking to different spirits, learning about spirits, and much, much more. Always life and death. They're always dismembering you, putting you back together, making you do vision quests. I think we did maybe 80 sweat lodges in that time, almost burning off my flesh. We had to go to a sun dance. I had to keep a fire. I had to do many, many things for years. And then finally, I left them. I left them. And I had started to read Castaneda's, because it was really a very Toltecan, very harsh training, I have to tell you, really militaristic. And finally, by the end, I had said, I'm going to leave these shamans. I am going to do exactly what Castaneda's did. I'm going to break. I'm going to get out of the ruthless tyrant, because they were reflecting to me almost a tyrant. And I did. I broke. Lots of things happened. With all sorts of animals, with wolves, with eagles, lots of things, vultures. I really liked vultures after that. The sin eaters. They were always teaching me how to eat people's sins, how to transmute energies, and how to, do healing work. And after a while, all the shamans were asking me for help. I could do an Anipi ceremony very well. I started to go to the Native American church. I started to understand how to talk to these plants, really. And then they also trained me, a different plant every month, and then a different plant every year, and you had to become one with these plants and sing their songs and let them live through you and teach through their songs. There was many times I only wanted to sing. I didn't want to talk to people anymore, certainly. And then from there came a healing work. I think it's now, I worked with more than 80,000 people around the world in 30 years.
Wow.
I had very good teachers, so they really trained me. And 17 years ago, I met my partner, Christos, whom I love more than anything in the world. And, he introduced me to higher magic. I was kind of ready. So we started with Kabbalah, and I got very involved in the Gnostic Kabbalah, the feminine Kabbalah, which nobody teaches. And he was trained by rabbis when he was 10 years old. And he has incredible stories to tell. And he trained me in Kabbalah, and I started to understand Elijah and the Metatron's cube and all that kind of stuff. And I had to learn how to enter into I don't know how to describe this to you, but like a hexagraphic form, a hexagram, and how to work with hexagrams and how to throw runes on people. I had to learn runes, and how to throw them and how to project them. oh my God, open doorways. So then he introduced me to temple work, and I had to learn a Bremelin, Solomonic, Enochian magic, and then it never stops. The Kabbalah was the foundation, and then I followed him and I entered his rituals, and then incredible things happened because he likes to evoke. So I got to meet spirits, like, in the smoke, when they come, and then they started to come, and then I started to photograph them. Then I got very into spirit photography, and then the Mother of God wanted to be photographed. So I started photographing her next to me. And then Hecate came, and then she wanted to be photographed next to me, and then because I really am devoted to them. And then Hecate, I started to do all the old rituals, from the original angels, the kind of dark angels. People like to talk about them. But we started to do invocations from a very long time ago. I was interested in the fifth element, the spirits before creation, the ones that when Christianity rejected them, the original gods and goddesses, they all went into the beautiful, fruitful darkness, the void. So I learned in magic how to go to the edge of the void, how to call the spirits in the void, and then they come and they give you very clear answers, and started to do path working, with different spirits. They taught me their path work so you can go to their world through a path working. From there, I got very into Grabavoy numbers. I still work with Grabavoy numbers. I love them. And then I got very involved in new kinds of constellation therapy. The original constellation therapy was not the Bert Hellinger thing. It was something else. And Christos introduced me to it because he had met the original woman who brought him into a dark room with some lights, blindfolded, and people became the constellations. And they talked to him, and I learned all the different constellations and how to become them and embody them for different people so that they could meet their ancestors home.
Man.
When you bring all the constellations into you, that's wholeness, And I got very involved in healing for a long, long time. The Dalai Lama always says there needs to be more peace speakers, more healers in the world. So I trained, I don't know how many hundreds of healers. I never wanted to be public, you understand? So I did maybe one whole life expo, and then I refused all radio and media. And I have a humility. I don't want to be famous or any of that stuff, because I had a moment of that. And so many people came to me, from Gandhis to, major movie stars. Everybody came. And they're regular people. And I learned over time that in a blessed life, people get very jealous. So I didn't want to expose myself too much. A lot of people, in different circles, like even Masons and everything, they've devoted their whole life to one thing, like magic or whatever. And then, I come in and take over, and they don't like that. I like leadership. I like to teach. I'm on fire when I'm teaching. I'm on fire when I'm healing. I don't like to work with a lot of people anymore. I make the group small now. I don't like to work with more than like 10 or 12 people on a day. And so I'm here in Brazil. I just finished a workshop in a very small town called Londrina, because I have a student that I've been with for 25 years, and he built a whole center for the Hummingbird. So that's why I'm here. And I just gave him, and I'm going now to another student of mine, Nishikami, and working with her and my friend Laura Pedrati, who also has been with me since the very first day I came here. And she has loved me since then, and I loved her. So that's all the people I work with, I actually love. So it's a family for me. And spirituality, it's a family. You don't fit in anywhere else. My family thought, where did you come from? Of course, I was the black sheep of the family.
Yes.
And they couldn't understand, what the hell are you doing? And when I had I called a spaceship once in front of my family, and it landed next to them. And they were shocked.
Awesome.
What is that? What are you doing? They denied it to this day. So I did that for many people. In the early days, I used to call them because I wasn't afraid. I didn't care. Now they never come. I'm not even interested. I have to say, bless them all. I just don't like the manipulation, that we're doing on Earth, where they're kind of going to invade us or something. I don't believe in that.
If they wanted to invade us, they would have done it a long time ago. They wouldn't have waited till now. Well, let's wait till they have weapons.
I think they want to show themselves in this century, though. I do
Yes.
believe
Yeah.
inner earth people want to show themselves in this century. There's a whole study here of the inner earth. They built temples in
Yes.
Brazil to commune with the inner earth called Ubiasi. Then
Yeah.
I also got very involved in being hit by lightning too many times. So I was in the Shamanic Institute of Brazil where I got hit by lightning.
Oh,
The
you.
whole the
Oh,
whole
wow.
workshop, and it was all balls of lightning walking through the room in a
Oh.
meditation. And another time, I was with a medicine woman that I love, Dawn Eagle woman, from Wyoming, and we were leading a vision quest with too many people, 70 people. Don't ever do that. And somebody was going to get hit by lightning, so I started running really, really fast in a field with her, and we got to her just as the lightning struck. We put our raincoat over her, and we still got hit. So that was the dramatic time, a lot of drama then. Now it's different, after all the near-death experiences and the dismemberments and the
Oh,
different spirits, that dismember you over and over again.
Right.
Shamans love to talk about the
Right.
dismemberments. Finally,
Yeah.
that's kind of past for me. That only happens more in dreams, and I like to help other people to dismember, of course, their ego and their, different personalities and start to get to the holy guardian angel and put that in your heart, and that's your higher self, and follow that all your life. Right? Isn't that the point?
Nice.
you can
That's so
hear the calm and
beautiful.
peace in your voice, like in your presence, and wow, it's just so much love
Yeah.
and peace pouring out of you. I'm just like, I need this all the time. This is nice.
No, I like you. I told you. I like you, three girls. I like that it's three girls. That's always manifestation for me.
And we're
My
all
three favorite
green-eyed
goddesses are
girls.
always.
Yes.
Oh, I do. I like it.
Yeah,
The
and
my
we're
three
all
favorite goddesses
green-eyed.
are Potia, Artemia, and Arya. One Arya's space, Timia's time, and Potia's energy. And if you understand
Oh,
quantum physics, those three goddesses created everything. And
oh,
they
I
are
love
the
that.
triangle of manifestation. Whenever you talk to a spirit, you have to put them in a triangle if you want to manifest them. And then they appear through the smoke. And they can only appear, and you kind of help them through the triangle of manifestation. I love geometry. I'm always working with that. Whether I'm casting a circle or, I go to witch groups. I have no problem with witches because I love Diana. I love that movie, this this new movie that, Wonder Woman, because it's a
Oh,
woman
yeah.
who has light, right, in her hand, so she can control her own light. She has a whip of light that she can actually kill men with the light, which is fantastic to me. And the fact that the man in the story is the one who dies, not the woman, finally. For the first time, he's the weak one, not her. So for the
Right.
first time, I'm hearing truth in a movie. And here I'm seeing something honest, because men, not all men, but many men have been jealous of women just because they give birth. You have to understand
I
that,
mean, that's
men cannot give birth. So they've been jealous, and they created this incredible manipulation and stories to suppress women. So, of course, my major work these days, whether it's with LGBT, it's definitely transgender, but a lot of women, to help them to remember the story of Pandora. She's not a bad thing. She created all of life, Or I go with Jewish people. I love to be with Jewish people, and I explain to them not only Kabbalah, but all the 12 original women of the tribes, like Leah, or who, the first women were, Sarah, and, where they come from, and who those women really were, and how they enjoyed their lives,
Ooh.
and how they birthed this race, and how they loved their children, and how hysterically funny they were. We have to say they had a great sense of humor, these ladies. And now, you go to Israel and you see Rachel's tomb and everybody's crying. And Rachel was somebody so, I saw her, she's a spirit. I went to Rachel's tomb, and there she sat next to us, and she just started talking, saying, I don't know why they're crying. It's ridiculous to me because I created a race theatrical. I love theater. I love joy. I love, this is what it means to be Jewish. I'm not Jewish, but I just wanted to help them, Kabbalah certainly changed me, learning so much as a foundation. And then came the many teachers that I met, whether they're Melchizedek teachers or whether they're, I met a lot of the male teachers that are very Shambhalic. Now Shambhala, most of the teachers are women. They're like mothers, you understand? Because that is the energy we definitely need now, right? We need women who are normal enough to speak to other women and be in their power. know who they are. I know who I am. I know my past lives. I've already had that. And having my partner, when I first met my partner, I tested him, and I said, so what was my last life? And then he gave me dates. He explained it in detail in the 19th
Nice.
century, where I came from in France, how we met, how we went to Shambhala, how I lost 3 toes in the snow, how I lived there, and I died there. So I failed actually in Shambhala because I died. You're not supposed to die there.
Oh.
Shambhala is the future.
Mhm.
It's to sustain everything in case there's a great war. It is what happens after the war, but it's ecological. Don't you understand? Like shamans, it's holistic. It conserves nature. They taught me how all the animals and trees and everything share our DNA. How you face your inner beast, how you control your beast, right? Whether it's a dragon or a jaguar, or in my case, my own little Black Panther. But anyway, you learn how
Oh, so I'm
to
right.
control
Okay.
yourself. How do you control yourself? How do you have self-control? I had to control, you can't control your emotions ever, but you can control your mind. And my emotions all emotions are powerful. That's why I love South America, very emotional. You have to be
Cool.
able to use your emotions to create environments, because only if you trust your emotions, if you feel it and you stay with it, like anything you want to change takes 40 days. You know that. Any pattern you want to change, anything in your life,
Right.
a new rhythm takes 40 days. So I stay in a certain feeling for 40 days. A lot of work. Like if
Wow.
I want to have a new house, I imagine what that house is like. I feel it in my whole being. I love the house. I dedicate myself to that for 40 days, and then I get the house. So I did that. I wanted to test it. I'm not a materialist, but I wanted to test, can I get a mansion in Beverly Hills, which I did. And then I lived in Beverly Hills for 17 years. I tested myself. I got into the feeling of what would it be like to be with a billionaire? What would that be like? And then I met a billionaire and I lived with her for 7 years. Can you imagine all this? Um, and I always leave, because I'm not really attached to it. I learn my lessons there. I learn when it's a gilded cage. I learn how to break out of that cage. And then I go back to kind of a simple life again. And my partner does that. Like, maybe he will smoke for 1 year and then he'll never smoke again. I have power over a cigarette, and then he'll do something else. I'll drink coffee for a year. I won't drink coffee for another year. He does that. That's working. Um, I love my teachers. I have to say, I love my ancestors. I know that we all came to evolve our families. That they asked for us. They wanted us. They wanted us to be different. They
Yes.
wanted us to be black sheep. They wanted to create, again, the spiritual legacy that we lost with all this religious programming. I am definitely not religious. I am the least religious person. I'm definitely not Christian, for sure. Even though I began with Christianity, I do adhere to the original Jesus, who he really was, who Mary was. And I actually hold to that original teaching. It's very Gnostic. At the same time, because I have met so many witches, and because of what happened to them, I got initiated into their covens, too. So I met a prime witch. And when you meet a prime and you see what she can do, you are dumbfounded. You cannot describe it. A woman in her power, when all the women are dancing and singing in a circle, and they let a man in. Because, Susanna Budapest, all these ladies that I like, don't let men in, the Dianic circle. So for me to be able to do that, was such a great honor with all the Kundalini. Of course, all the Kundalini come when you're making a cone of power. And so I grew to love them, and a lot of them are herbalists and, midwives and, artists. So I understood them. But we all came to evolve our families to finally be the spiritual one again, because it's been lost in so many lineages, right? And
Yes.
we're not really loved for that, we're not really honored for that. So to restore honor and dignity to spiritual people, you've got to do that, right? Got to live with integrity now. You've got to remember who you were as a witch, or remember who you were as a shaman before, a medicine woman, or because we lost so much knowledge, right? We lost almost all of it. I like Michael Harner, that he created the drumming circles. I didn't start with a drum, I have to say. I started with very heavy practices. They made me hang from trees. They made me do obstacle courses,
Wow.
the shamans. They pushed me to my limit, really.
And why do you think you had to go through that path? Did you think you...
Because I was born in New York City. I was too domesticated, and Indians are wild. And I had to go back to my wild nature. So they forced me on every level, really. I never cut my hair, I don't know how many years. And you know what happened? I became so wild that when I went to England, to London to begin working there, they didn't let me in the country. They stopped me at customs and I had to go all the way back. They were afraid of me.
Wow.
Because I came looking like a shaman, with the leather in my hair and hair down to my waist. And I really looked like a wild shaman. And so I went to New York to a salon, on Fifth Avenue.
Right.
And I walked in and I donated my hair and I had them cut it off. And he had to buy me a suit, the hair cutter, because I had no suit. And I went back to England and they let me in. I got the first actual visa for shamanism. I had to explain to England what a shaman is. Can you imagine? And now everybody gets in on shaman visas. But I was the first. And that's why I look like I do now. I didn't want people just to be frightened of me. But when I first came to Brazil with the long hair, they put me on leopard skins like a yogi. And I for some reason, I started to talk about a yogi that I had traveled in India with. I lived with a yogi for a time in the Himalayas. He slept on the floor of trains and he was quite a character. But we used to go into houses and he would do mantras. He would do prayers. He taught me for a little while, and the whole house would start to become black. Like liquid would pour out of the walls physically. All the darkness of a house. And then we have to scrub. Of course, you have to clean the house. I had to scrub with the people because I was kind of his apprentice. But more than that, I lived with these people. I loved them. What can I say? I met more yogis. I met more people. And I love Umbanda. I love all the Africans here. I went to Africa because I wanted to be initiated into voodoo. And then I went to New Orleans. I fell in love with New Orleans. And then I met the voodoo queens there. And then, I honor them. I went to Salem because I love, love, love the Sicilian witches. I like Sicily. I like the real thing. And then I have Christos. I had to understand my partner because he is really a witch. He's a witch, a male witch. And of a very high order. And, I can be with the Hopi and I love to be in the fields and just do gardening. I love that whole thing. I like farming. I like being with Indians. And, you have spaceships over you while you're doing it. They're like blonde. I don't know who these people are, but they're tall. They're blonde. It's a transparent ship. You can see them in the window and you just go back to growing corn. It's normal. And they taught me, that the way you are creates the weather, just like witches. So I started to change the way I am. So wherever I go, it starts to thunder and lightning outside the first day.
Don't come to my house then.
That's my favorite.
No,
I want to come to your house.
I spend a lot of energy pushing the storms and tamping them down so they don't do anything.
No, I love the storms out here.
I tell her to send them to me so I can go outside and run around in them and I'll be free.
No.
That's my storm. That's my weather. I'm all about the storms.
That's my terror. That's my terror.
But I love ogums. I like the study of trees. The ogums.
Well, you would love my forest.
Yeah.
Love my forest.
You make a circle around a tree. You put the knife in the ground, you touch the tree, and you ask for the wand. And usually the wand falls from a tree. I like Japanese. Japanese make the most beautiful things, but they make saws that are electrical, so you can actually cut the branch without hurting the tree too much. You always put your spit on a tree, and then they give you a branch, or it falls down in front of you.
Yeah.
And then you work with the tree spirit because you only want the spirit, the dryads, because they make babies. And there's a wonderful man in England that we love him. He's so old now, but a Dusty Miller, and he made the most famous wands. his family for generations have made wands for all the different magical orders in England, for the great shamans. The lady who created, this work with aura, these bottles, He made some of the most incredible wands in the world, and I keep his wands very close to me, especially from trees of death. They're the transformative trees, that they make now cancer cures out of and everything. But those particular trees, like willows and fairy trees, I love them. I keep them always. I travel with them. I keep them under my pillow, definitely. I like fairies too. I have to understand. There is a branch of fairy shamanism. Fairies to me are extraterrestrials. They're advanced fairies that are, of course, very, very much technological and much more advanced than us. And I've had, they're very tall fairies, and they're quite majestic. They don't like humans very much because we didn't treat them very well. The Todanans,
Right.
the Tuatha and when they do come, they give you songs, the most incredible songs, the most incredible gifts of healing, the most wonderful knowledge of herbs, if you can exchange. They're looking for people to be friends with. Spirits want to be friends with us. They're looking for people who will keep coming back. You know what I mean? They're not looking for dilettantes. They're looking for people who will form a relationship with them. So for a shaman, after a while, you have to form relations with fairies. Then you have to form relations with different spirits of the different worlds. And water spirits, the first time recently, we were in Greece, in Crete, in this unbelievable cave of Zeus. And there was no Zeus there. And we entered, you have to climb a whole mountain, and then you go into the cave, right? So then you have to descend inside, and there's a lake inside of the mountain. And it was an incredible experience. It's open to the public. And while we were in there, there was a water spirit, but not a normal elemental water spirit. It was something so advanced. And I never experienced that. And Christos, of course, loves to embody a spirit, And so he started to channel the spirit. And of course, water is pouring out of his mouth like gushing. So don't be afraid. And blood. He had blood at the end. It was pretty bad. And she started talking. And she told us about that children of Atlantis, in this particular cave, when they brought those children there to Greece, to Crete, she took care of them, this water spirit, and that she protected them. And of course, those children later became our gods and goddesses, These were the children of Atlantis. Most of them didn't survive. You know how that happened. They were hunted.
Right.
But a lot of them survived, and that's where we get all these original stories from. And of course, there were the Atlanteans themselves who were our original gods and goddesses. And then there were the Titans before them, Hecate comes from that. And then you get into, all the other spirits. Oh my God, the original angels even that used to walk here and that I'm fascinated with. And I did rituals to them, with witch fire and all that stuff. But you just keep going. There were so many civilizations, Gobi and Sahara, and before that, many more. But this water spirit, when I first met it, I wanted to take it to the ocean. I wanted to take her to the ocean. And so she followed us. She wanted to be with us. So we just kind of, I don't know how to, she just followed us, and we went to the ocean, the Mediterranean. It's not really an ocean, but a sea. And we did a ritual for her, and she left. She went back home, she went to the sea. And she taught us something very, very important. And I think what she taught us is that in any kind of water, whatever water you go through, whatever you do, water can take you to any world where there is water. So she always traveled. You know that shamans, witches, everybody, whether you're flying or whatever, you're always traveling. You're traveling with a shamanic journey. You're traveling on a broom like a witch. You know what I mean? It's always traveling. And she was telling us how you can enter any world through the body of water. And that she's traveled to many worlds where water exists, and that she can find water anywhere in the universe. And that's how we can do time travel. She was explaining to us time travel. because I'm
Wow.
very, very, very interested, of course, in time travel. I'm always going to these. There's a place in England. There's a graveyard where people come in and out, with clothes from different time periods, and
Oh,
it's an actual
neat.
crypt, and it's a time travel crypt, and it was done in the 19th century, and it's what H.G. Wells based The Time Machine on.
Oh,
That
yeah.
there's an
Yeah,
actual
that has
time
always
machine
stuck with me.
buried there. Yeah, and even the man who built the crypt, everybody's buried in a sacred geometric form. Oh my God, it's
Oh, neat.
incredible. There's so many incredible temples in the world too, underneath the
Wow.
Vatican, or every city has a great temple. And so Christos started to teach me Sumerian. He can speak Sumerian.
Oh,
He studied
wow.
Sumerian language, and then he started to teach me a little bit of Greek and then a little bit of Latin, because you can't read the old scriptures, the old books, without knowing these languages. And he's an
Right.
adept at that. I'm not. I definitely didn't get it. But he fantastic with languages. And so he started to tell me what the original invocations were like and how to read, ancient Egyptian. So we went to Egypt and he just did rituals in the old tongue. And this thing started to happen. I didn't realize that in Egypt, the hieroglyphs, when you put gold dust on them, it's actually in back of them, they actually start moving. They're like TV.
Ooh. Ooh.
I never knew that. I never understood what the advancement of these races was like. He showed me all of that. He's an incredible teacher. He became my teacher, my own partner. And what an incredible journey. Spirit, later left, this water spirit, and she told me the first masters on this planet were the elements, the elementals. And that's why when you're a shaman and you start invoking in each direction, in the east I invoke air, in the south, you invoke fire, and you can do the archangels too, which came from much older beings, the four winds. That the reason why you invoke us first is because we were the first masters, and we are great teachers. And that being started to teach us so many things. I don't know how to describe how elementals teach you, but I'm sure that's the old shamanism. Then I had great respect for all the nations, especially White Buffalo Calf Woman. I mean, definitely the great woman teacher of the Indians. And everything she taught, her story, I used to tell her story, many years, her story. Of course, I became a pipe carrier, and different tribes gave me pipes.
Oh, wow.
And I started to sing the songs of the pipes, and every pipe has their songs too, and peace, and making peace in the world with people. It was an amazing journey too. And I still bring out my pipe from time to time, and I like to invoke the nations and talk to Takashla Watatanka, and remember her, the great teacher of the Indians, who was a woman. Remember that it was a great woman. The Indians were not doing well. Believe me, there was no animals, there was no food, there was nothing. And when she came, the Atlantean, I call her the Atlantean, White Buffalo Calf Woman. She was white, Atlantean. She brought them knowledge. And you know that women are the ones who are connected to spirituality. Men worked, they were in the fields, they were in wars. You know how men were always doing something. They were very busy, very active. Women were the ones talking to the forest. Women were the ones yearning for more. They were the ones who began that spirit talk. They have such a long tradition, and I think women forget that they're the spiritual ones. They have a legacy. It's natural to a woman.
Yes.
And that men kind of usurped that power. They took it for themselves, and they made it very, very esoteric, quite refined, definitely. I mean, shamanism refined is magic. No question in my mind. I don't use magic to do revenge, but Christos can do that. I know a lot of good people who can do incredible things. They major in that. That, like how to curse somebody or something. But I never do that kind of stuff because I'm more interested in I forgive you because I want peace, not because you deserve forgiveness. I always
Good
forgive
point.
people because I want peace, not because they deserve forgiveness at all. They're still doing the same old crap. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. But it's you free yourself from that crap that they've done when you forgive. You get rid of the hooks.
all the hooks. And we call that cords in shamanism. You're always cutting
Yeah,
cords,
cords.
dependency cords on people, right? And then you break the curses. I don't know if I really believe in curses, but I do know that people do self-curses. They curse themselves in past lives. Like, why do I have to see? You know, a lot of people don't like to see because when they did have the vision, when they, you know, there is the third eye, and then
Right.
there's also a fourth eye, but nobody ever talks about that. That's something you discover in magic the more adept you get. But the third eye, a lot of people never wanted to see because you see death, you see shadows, you see how this whole world is just full of ghosts, actually, and you know, you don't really want to see all the shadows of people, do you? Thought forms they create and the phantoms, you know, when I talk about entities or homeless spirits or whatever, most of them are just human phantoms. Human beings don't take responsibility for their own creations. So you're always trying to help homeless spirits to find a place in the forest or find a home, right? And then the others, you want to kind of send them to an evolution through a candle, right? You always light a candle when somebody dies so that they can follow the light. You always talk to them. You know, I always have attached spirits. People have a lot of dead people around them. They don't know where to go. So I just light a candle. I make a doorway out of the flame. You always make like a golden white doorway. And then you send them through the candle. You send them through the door, and then they, you know, you call their ancestors and you make a bridge.
Back to the
For
light.
years, you know. Yes. For years, I only did the medicine wheel. You know, I did the medicine wheel. I love Sun Bear, you know, and lots of people.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I started to do medicine wheels because, you know, he introduced me to all the medicine wheels. And I started doing them around the world for a year. And every time we did a medicine wheel, there was a rainbow bridge in the sky, like a physical rainbow, sometimes 7.
Wow.
Whenever there was an important shamanic meeting, we had always 7 rainbows. And you could see like a bifrost, really, the bifrost, the real bridge. That's the most amazing thing, just a medicine wheel, just to balance yourself on the wheel. It contains the whole universe, right? The whole cosmos. I love black mirrors. I mostly work with black mirrors now. I just, you know, I have a huge black mirror and I like to enter it, like the alchemist. You know, you walk through the mirror, you know, in your mind, you know, and you start to travel and you start to see the spirits and you start to meet them and they come through the mirror. Everybody likes to introduce themselves through the mirror. You know, I am the spirit
I
of
always
this world.
said,
You know, it's
I said, Foster. I remember working, and I said, we all have black mirrors.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And you know that Steve,
I made
and
one.
you know that Steve Jobs made the iPhone because he researched black mirrors, and he said it in an interview. So he did it on purpose.
He did. And I was remembering, I was working with a friend, and he was saying, make it this black mirror. So I spent all this time making this black mirror, and then I go, that was really stupid. I have one in my hand. So.
You
And
see,
he
I
goes,
told you,
"Oh,
you
yeah."
can talk to spirits, lady. Talk to the dead. Talk to different spirits.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be powered
Then
up.
I did a Middle Eastern training with jinns too. So you need a black mirror to talk to the jinns.
Right.
So I loved, and you always have to play Middle Eastern music, and you have to talk, and you get to, first you call the kings, not, you know, it's quite male, but the jinns that actually come are all mostly female. So it's quite fascinating, jinns. And then they teach you the magic squares and how to do magic. But the jinns, when they come, I have to say, have been like a family to me. Deep love for the jinns. They're all families. I love to be in the Middle East and be with them. I love to be by their fires or in their tents. Or something amazing about jinns. And they've inspired me, you know, to no end. I have no idea why people are afraid of spirits or afraid of them. Of course, the minute I talk about jinns, I'm going to have bells or whatever's going to start ringing. They're always around. And I never lock them into a stone. I never can bind a jinn. You know, I have a sword that I bought for my partner as a gift. And, you know, we feed the sword because the jinn is there. They like, you know, they like to eat yogurt and honey. And you always give offerings, you know. And we told the jinn and the sword, it's been there, I don't know, 500, 600 years, that you're free. You can walk around our house, you can protect, you can do whatever you want, but we free you. You know that Harry Potter thing, free Dobby?
Yes.
We did that with jinns. From objects, because everybody binds them to an object. And then the jinns started to just come to the house because they said, you know, one jinn tells another jinn, these people are nice. You should go to
Oh,
their
wow.
house. You know what I mean? It's the same with trees. When you're really nice to a tree, all the trees say, "Oh my God, this is a nice person." And then the
Oh,
wind starts blowing, when you're walking, and they all start talking, and it's same with an animal. If you're really good to animals, and you stop eating animals, whatever you do, when you really just love animals. Some people eat animals and really love animals. Anyway, more shamanically. And
Yeah, more shamanically.
they tell all the other animals, and animals start coming towards you. Christos is like that. He talks to babies. He loves babies. He loves animals. He doesn't like when they grow up, but he likes the babies. And then they all respond to him. You know what I mean? And I find that's mastery, isn't it? Isn't that mastery, the ability to love these children? And he's so funny too. So he keeps me laughing
Which
at
keeps
myself
the
because
high vibe.
I'm super serious. Yeah, I'm super serious. So
So you need
he's
that.
serious,
You
when
need
he's
that light.
teaching.
Yeah. Need the balance.
Foster, is there anything
Yeah.
you could offer to our audience, like some kind of, I don't know, little healing or little
Experience.
meditation that you
meditation.
would, or something you would suggest
Um,
for our, something short, something just
Something
uplifting
short.
or
Oh,
peaceful?
well, I want people to examine themselves.
Okay. Good.
Hecate, my favorite thing in Hecate is just to do her mantra. So I do her mantra every morning when I get up because Hecate has 3 hounds. She has 3 black dogs. And her 3 black dogs are always protecting me. And they are the 3 pillars of Kabbalah. They're strength, justice, and wisdom are her dogs. And in shamanism, when you do shadow things with your hands on like a surface, you put light behind you and you can do shadows. You can
Right.
create elementals out of that, and you can scare people, right, with black dogs. All that's an old witchcraft thing too. But shamans love to create dogs, and they protect me. Like when I'm in Los Angeles and I'm in a weird place and somebody's following me, like in a parking garage,
Right.
they will see a
Right.
black dog and it will attack them. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So
wow.
Hecate, whenever I call her mantra is Eyan Katya Ikar Hekat. And I do her mantra, Eyan Katya Ikar Hekat, Eyan Katya, when I'm healing. And she comes, Hecate. She's the mother of all, The first mother was Sophia.
Yeah.
Sophia, nobody could meet Sophia. She was an aeon, She's so ancient that no human being could relate to her. So she created all the goddesses out of herself. And Hecate, being a titan, was one of the first. She's really the most powerful I ever met, is Hecate. And when I call her Eyan Kachare Karikat, she comes and she fills the space. And she loves a triple circle. So when I call her, I like to make one circle clockwise. I like to make another circle around me counterclockwise, the path of the moon, sun and moon. And then her triple circle, I stand in the center with Hecate with her 3 hounds. They make a triangle of manifestation. And I just do that all in my mind. And then she's here. And I love to call her. I think she's my favorite. I call lots of them. I love Belial. Belial is for me Mother Earth. And Belial taught me one thing very strong. I used to call her, Larash, Tasa, Verfa, Welek, Belial. And she would come like with strong winds and whatever, or like they like to come in like little whirlpools of air, like a tornado around you. They
Yeah.
make a tornado.
Right.
It's a fantastic
Like
experience.
a dust.
And so she said to me one day, like the water spirit always said, if you want to know the earth, if you really want to connect to the earth, don't call me Gaia. Don't call me Rhea. Don't call me these names. Call me your name. Call the earth Foster. Because the way
Oh,
you treat yourself, call the earth Rhonda, call the earth Teresa, call the earth your name. Because the way you take care of yourself is the way you take care of the earth.
wow. I
If you
love
call the
that.
earth your name, I want people to know that. I would say the most
Beautiful.
beautiful thing is, like you might like the teacher of the Pleiades, right? You love all these galaxy things. The teacher of the Pleiades were the Andromedans, and the Andromedans rules over the masculine. It's the feminine that rules over the masculine, because Andromeda always says, I protect, I rule, I am the ruler of men. And when women learn that, the teachers of the Pleiades, the Andromedans, when you connect to it, you start to have power again over all the dogmas, over all this manipulation of the world, of medicine, of manipulation of religion, manipulation of almost everything now, television. Everything is so manipulated to believe a certain way, not spiritual. And I love Canis Major, of course, because it's the dog. It's whenever you have helper dogs, that's the dog star, and that's the military, that's the police, I love police. I'm always giving readings to police people. And so what would I do? Ursa Major, the female bear, which you love. She rules over the introverted. Because the bear's resurrection, you know that. So I'm just kind of guiding you through the stars, Segway is a planetary system for travel. You segue into the next thing. That's why we get the word from. It's to never be home. Be home everywhere. I was doing a ritual once with Christos, and we were so involved in the ritual that we disappeared. Nobody could see us. We became invisible, but we saw them, but no one could see us. And then that's the thing in physics, when you're completely doing a ritual and you're completely there and you invoke, then all of a sudden you're in their dimension. Cassiopeia, it's very difficult because it's justice, and it teaches you about the torture. It teaches you about the power of unbelievable torture, Cassiopeia. I mean, it's bizarre to say, but it's justice. It corrects every mistake, but it's not easy. You know how Saturn also corrects our mistakes locally. Pegasus, which is wisdom. Shamans love Pegasus, because any animal that can also fly and do other things that has more elements to it. Pegasus teaches wisdom and fame. It teaches you to be an original. So whenever Pegasus comes, it means be original. Have fame, have wisdom. Or Arcturus, the giver of the gifts. All our evolutionary gifts came from Arcturus, because they're evolvers, they're gift givers. Or to see your own value and hold and maintain it is Calypso, one of my favorite. Actually, nobody talks about it, but it's a constellation. Really, really interesting. Ganymede is for gay people. I love that gay people have their own universe.
Yeah, right on.
I could go on and on. Prometheus, obviously, is Lucifer. And Anubis, who I love in Egypt, is Baphomet. These are all the mysteries. Pandora, what does she teach us? That evil has a right to exist. And that it can't stay here because evil needs something to stop moving. And this planet is always in movement, so it will never be evil. The feminine is always movement, but evil always needs to stand still. It always needs to get so rigid and fixed, And it can't actually take over because we're always moving. These are all the things I've learned, about Rhea and Gaia and the female wisdom of Wicca. Or the female Galatea, the milk, of the universe. She's like the Milky Way. She's Jeanne d'Arc, she's Lilith. Or Sirius, which is all about spiritual development. Obviously, Sirius A and B here is about spiritual development. It gave us spirituality. It gave us all the concepts. It gave us all that stuff. And it gave us amazing things. The demons came through Triton. Triton is the planet of Saturn. Do I believe in demons? I don't. To me, they're old gods and goddesses. I don't believe in that. I believe in old gods and goddesses. They gave us so much. They're companions, by the way. My daemon companion is just as important as my power animal. You have to know your daemon, your genius companion.
Wow.
And you have to have your angel. You have to meet your guardian angel. Sometimes they give you a name. I know my guides. I have 3 guides. I love them very much. And always we have guides that are saints, and we share guides. So I like my guide because I can share it with so many people. They have the same guide, Bridget. You talk about the Celts, but Bridget always I go to Glastonbury every year, and I do my ritual in Glastonbury, like Dion Fortune did, and Dion. There's so many ladies that I like from Glastonbury. And I also do. I also talk about Saint Nicholas a lot. I'm Greek, I'm half Greek, so Saint Nicholas is really important. Christus is Greek. Most of our
Oh,
friends
neat.
are Greek.
I'm only an eighth Greek, so I don't have much, but a little.
Oh,
I'm going
that's
to have
good.
a Greek daughter-in-law, so yeah, I'm going to
Oh, they
migrate.
love
Yeah.
they're old. That's the old knowledge, you know. And then I have my Aztec warrior. You know, I like the Aztecs. The Aztec warrior protects me. You know, always you have a friend who will protect you. If you lay down your life for them, they will be with you as a guide. You know, that's an amazing thing to be selfless sometimes. Anyway, I believe in people. I really do like people. I do believe in what's coming. I know what's coming. I know that the 2020s is a completely new. So that's the one thing I want to leave with you is the 2020s is a whole new vibration. It's two. It's not one anymore. It's not ego anymore. It is that finally we are coming together as twos. You understand? And that will last for the whole century. No more ones.
Yes.
Uh,
Do you understand?
yes.
This is the last month of the ones, of ego, and, you know, but it's great. We had to learn independence, right? Everybody has to be independent. I always tell a
Yeah.
woman, make your own money, be independent, don't be dependent on somebody. You know, that's the first thing I teach a woman,
Right.
please be independent. That it's a great virtue to be independent. And then this 2020s that are coming, I mean, water is going to come. Quite feminine, the two. So waters are going to rise. You know, when we talk about Atlantis rising, it's already rising as a continent. That's why waters are rising, not just because things are melting, because something's rising out of the ocean. That's new land to buy. By the way, I don't believe in buying land, but you know, you have to caretake it. And more is coming. Of course, there's an ecological catastrophe probably coming. We're almost there. It's coming. Not in our lifetime, but in our children's. And then whatever's underneath the Sphinx, the paw of the Sphinx, is the future. It's what our ancestors left for us because they went through the same thing 26,000 years ago.
Yes.
Now that everything's changing, they have advanced knowledge for us to learn what to do. So even our ancestors never let us down. No, I hope that's all helpful. Hope that's all interesting to you.
Oh, yes.
It's been
Amazing,
fascinating.
I like
amazing.
readings. Someday I have to just kind of give you a reading, you know, just for fun.
Oh, I would love that.
You know, just light. You know, you can't turn it off. It's always there. You know that. As long as you ground it, as long as you live it, you know, I don't care what you learn spiritually. It's that you're consistent. It's that you continue it, right? Isn't that the discipline that you do it every day, right? If you say you're not going to eat bread, just don't go back to eating bread. If you promise something to a spirit, don't go back on your promise. They hate that. They don't come back. You do that. They like consistency. It's a relationship. They are friends. That's what I want to tell you as a shaman. They're the master of the in-between. You know, between you and I, between me and any object, between anything. It's the space in between, isn't it? Isn't the whole world of the spirits the in-between world, the inner worlds? Isn't it a pathwork to go back and forth, or we sing songs or mantras, or to create a higher frequency so that we can manifest from a negative to a positive? Isn't that the whole idea? I love solfeggio frequencies. You know, I'm a big solfeggio
Oh, yeah.
fan.
Oh, me too.
Now it's
Yeah.
free and you can just go, and I play that all day sometimes, the frequency, or I
Play
just
it
put
to
on
my
headphones
water
for,
every
for
day.
20 minutes. Yes, you need it.
That's what.
And that's
Yeah.
such a gift now, isn't it? You are a smart lady, you know this? You're all smart
She
ladies, you
is.
know.
Yes.
I'm old.
But to journey within, right? Isn't this the inner journey to create the vibration, to co-create an alignment of harmony, right? Between your desire and what you want as a result. That's my biggest thing with people. How do you create something over the gap between what you want and what you want to manifest? How do you close the gap? That's the big thing. You have to feel it. You have to make movements towards it. You have to. You have to make the bridge. And that's why we're here, because I don't want just people to talk about it. I want them to actually create things here, right? You know, we're all here to create, to make choices. Life is life itself. Right? It never ends. You know, there's no end. I've never found an end. There's no end. We're infinity. We are all infinity. That's what all shamans teach. And there's no end, and there never will be. I hope this was helpful.
Oh,
Wonderful.
totally.
Thank you. We'll put your
Totally.
contact information and everything you sent me in the program, in the video, so people want to get in touch with you or find out what you're doing or look at your music, whatever. It's all there. You do so much. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
So do you.
Teresa, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
You give so much too. You give so much. Thank you for doing this, you girls. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being alive, and you do your best. That's all you can do in life, right? Give your best. Be yourselves, for God's sake. Self-acceptance, the hardest thing, isn't it? The first thing you learn as a shaman is that you have to ask all your friends all your worst traits. You have to know everything worse about you so that you have a balanced perspective of yourself, so you really are looking in the black mirror correctly. Right? And if I
Yes.
accept that and I see the good things too, then you become what you are without judgment. Right? Please be yourselves. Everybody wants to fit us into something. There are no labels. I'm a shaman, but I do everything, so come on.
I think a
Love you
shaman
guys.
does everything by the sounds of you.
Hmm.
I love exploring. This is just experience, right? This is not a real world that we're living in here, by the way. The real world is
Right.
a spiritual world. This is not a real world.
Right.
We created
Right.
this world, by the way, to learn lessons, to learn, once you learn your lessons, then there's the tests, right? And then eventually that ends. So then you're just creating your own, so-called karmas. I don't know if I believe in karma, but we create our realities differently. Right? We are creators.
We'll figure it out. For sure.
I'm sure you're teaching that. How to create appropriately. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. You.
There. So, Teresa,
Isn't
do you
gratitude
want
everything?
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
it is.
Gratitude is everything. There's nothing else, right? It's a big thank you. I wake up every morning, I fill myself with white light, and I say thank you. Thank you for today. Ra, Kahor, whatever. I call you every morning, and I fill myself with it. Right? Be a light in this world, please. It's incredibly dark sometimes. You're the light. Oh,
Beautiful.
I think that's enough. We did a lot.
We
Yes,
did a
we
lot.
did.
We
can
did.
talk about the years with
We
science. I
did.
worked with scientists for years. I worked like
Yeah.
singing to cancer cells for years, teaching them for the frequencies of how to kill a cancer cell, which is a terrible thing. I didn't really want to kill a cancer cell. I wanted them to just go to sleep. But I killed them. You can do that with a sound. Everything is frequencies. All the gods and goddesses, by the way, are just frequencies. They are
Right.
animated frequencies. And when you put them all together, all the gods and goddesses, and you put them inside of yourself, the ones you resonate with the most, the ones you make the
Right.
medicine wheel out of, when you put them inside of you, that's wholeness. That's the frequencies that you live by, that protect you, that are your medicine wheel inside, it's your connection to the universe. It's the way. Learn to master frequency. Anyway, that's why you're all listening to Solfeggios, right?
Right.
And drinking
I
it
like
too.
1,220. That's my favorite, the pineal.
Oh, 1,220? I've been doing 528
pineal.
shots.
That's really fantastic. That's one of my favorites. We can talk about numbers another time. I love numbers. So
Yeah.
would love
we
to
can talk
Beautiful.
about the grabophone.
Yes.
And maybe when you're
Awesome.
get back to North America, we'd love to have you back again. If you'd love to come and see us, we'd be happy to
Yes.
have you back on.
Oh, I want to go to Canada. Canada, they're nicest people, so of course I want to go to Canada.
We say sorry
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
All the time.
Yep.
LA is full of Canadians, by the way, Los Angeles, and you meet them and they're the nicest of the people, and Midwesterners too.
They're the ones that say sorry when they don't do anything.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right.
It's raining. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
God, there's nothing to be
Compassion.
sorry for, is there? Nothing. There's nothing to be sorry for. Ever. Ever.
Well, yeah. Or maple leaves, but that's
Spirituality
not
is
it.
honesty. Yeah. Spirituality is honesty and truth. You know, the only true honest path is spiritual. I know there's a lot of false teachers now, and there's a lot of fake people. You know, a lot of people come to my seminars, they go do one thing and they call themselves a shaman, which I don't like. I mean, after 12 years of study, you don't want to do that. But having said that, I'm very happy that many, many people are at least going on a path, and it will lead somewhere anyway. And
Definitely.
everybody gets revealed anyway. You know, if you sleep with your students or whatever, you get revealed. You know,
Yes.
the first thing they
Yes.
taught me as a shaman is never sleep with your students, because if you sleep with your students, you're not
Right.
a shaman. Integrity, right?
Perfect.
That's right. The thing you have.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much. Thank you, Foster. Teresa, do you want to
Thank you
say
so,
our
so much.
announcements?
Well,
Do you want to?
I was trying to think of what the announcements were while you're saying that. Basically, aren't we putting the announcements in the comments
That's all you
since
need to
we're
say.
recording this, and then
There
we'll
it
know?
is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you want to know who won, it's the reading with me. They shared it out the other day. And then who's next? Whoever
It'll be
shares
me.
out Foster's show
It was
is
awesome.
right back to Rhonda then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll
So
win a healing with
So
me.
share it out, you guys. Let's get information out there. Let's come together in the name of learning and information. And this is such an exciting time. I love it. This was another beautiful show. Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you,
That's all.
Foster. Have a blessed week.
Yes, bless you.
Namaste,
That's
my
the purpose of
friends.
a woman. The purpose of a woman is to bless people. Did you know that? That is her real purpose, was to bless people. A woman is powerful. She can curse and she can bless while she's making dinner.
I try to bless them
It's
while
the
I'm
old
making
way,
dinner.
really.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to stop right now.